Hey guys, welcome back to Vertical Momentum. I'm your host, Richard Kaufman, also known as the Comeback Coach. Guys, I'm not in the old office. We're actually rebuilding this whole podcast studio. So if it doesn't look right, I apologize, but it's all good. Before we get started, I want to thank Monster Energy. I got 6 interviews today. They're keeping me rolling. The sugar-free editions are awesome. And also, guys, if you're a veteran and want to become a vetpreneur, check out the Warrior Council in the Vetpreneur Tribe. Guys, this episode, if you're an entrepreneur and you're a veteran and want to become an entrepreneur, this episode is for you. My brother David, we've been friends for years now. He's an amazing dude. I mean, he's a Marine, which, guys, you know I love my Marines. He's a CEO, podcast host, real estate investor. He does it all. He's the Swiss Army knife of positivity. David, my brother, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm glad people think I'm positive all the time. I've been known to be my negative Nancy here and there, but life is good, man. Life is good.
I love it. So first question I'm going to ask you right off the bat, what is your definition of resiliency, especially after, people see the successful David. They don't see, the guy that in the Marine Corps had a lot of struggles in his life, but has come out the other side. So what is your definition of resiliency?
Yeah, there's a million ways to skin that cat, right? And I'm sure the answer of just never giving up or never quitting is common, but I think consistency is a good word for resilience, right? It's the ability to keep doing the routine no matter when shit is going your way or not going your way. And I think they're very parallel worlds, right? I mean, there's a million ways you could describe resilience, but I think it's just the ability to, get up and keep doing the same things day over day, no matter what, no matter how you're feeling.
And that's one of my favorite quotes is consistency trumps intensity every time.
Yes.
Because you might, even in professional sports, you may have a basketball player that plays high for 3 years, but they're not playing hard for 20 years. So and the ones that play hard for 20 years are the ones that are getting into the Hall of Fame.
Yep, that's exactly right.
So give us a little quick down and dirty about where'd you come from, where'd you grow up, and how and why did you join the Marine Corps?
Yeah, I grew up for the majority of life in Little Rock, Arkansas. I was a homeschooled, religious, sheltered kid in a conservative family, and that probably sums it up. Eagle Scout, all the normal, baseball player, all the normal things you do growing up. And then when I was getting closer to 18, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I'd always wanted to be a firefighter, cop, military, something to, I guess, give back, right, to serve. And I mean, really, I don't think it was because of the serving. Let's be real. It was because they all seemed like really fun jobs when you're a kid. You're like, oh, police get to, tase people, and firefighters run into burning buildings, and service members get to do all kinds of jump out of airplanes. Like, all that stuff sounds awesome. And ultimately, I chose the Marine Corps. And it's funny, I tell people I chose the Marine Corps because of their uniforms or whatever, and because it was a challenge. But I think the reality is, when I talked to all the branches, I realized that the Marine Corps had the best duty station locations. And I mean, the Navy has some really good locations, but you're very likely to get stuck on a ship and not see that location a whole lot. And so, at the time, my understanding was like, oh, San Diego, Hawaii, Guam, on the beach on the East Coast, Japan, like, I'm okay with all those places. The recruiters, of course, don't tell you about 29 Palms and that you're going to get stuck in the desert. But that was one of the main reasons. And I just wanted an adventure. I wanted to be able to travel the world, gain some life experience, have a real adventure, and leave Little Rock. Right. I wanted to see the world.
But why would you want to leave the world of the Clintons to go travel the world? So
I would say most people in Little Rock don't claim that.
But so, did you take to the Marine Corps? Because like a lot of people, when they join the military, either they loved it or hate it. You stayed for a minute, so obviously you must have liked it. So did you take to it?
Oh yeah. No, I took to it. I could have jumped out and gone to college. Still didn't know what I wanted to do school wise, and so I went. I did 13 years on active duty, and I stayed until it wasn't fun anymore. And really, it only became not fun because as you get promoted and wars die down, you don't do all the deployments and trainings and fun stuff. You get stuck at I found myself my last 2 years. I was in a windowless skiff with no cell phone access, no Gmail, no, access to really anything online fun. And just working away, it was one of those, they even waived our rifle range because they were like, oh, you guys are fine. You don't need to shoot this year. You can just stay here. And I was like, I didn't join the Marine Corps to live in a box. Like, this is terrible. Um, and so that was kind of when I decided it was time to get out, when I was no longer working with the Marines on the ground or running motor pools or doing deployments or field ops or anything. It was just wasn't fun anymore.
So how many years did you end up doing?
13.
All right. So the reason why I knew the answer, but the reason why I wanted to ask is, because a lot of people think, wait a minute, you're in for 10, you might as well do the whole bitch.
Yeah.
But a lot of us, when we get out of the military, like Sergeant Nick says in our group, that when you step off base, number one, the military doesn't give a shit about you anymore. Number two, a lot of us don't have the camaraderie that we used to have with our guys. Number three, a lot of us don't do 20 years, so we're not even getting a paycheck. And a lot of us end up at the bottom of a bottle at the end of a barrel because of some of those things. So what was your military transitioning like?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I've lost entirely too many friends, as we all have, from exactly that. I think a lot of that stems from when people exit the military, their entire sense of purpose and identity was tied to being in the military. They haven't taken the time to figure out, and it was rough for me even, but to figure out who Dave is, who Richard is, who Pat is, who you are without the military. And if your answer when people are like, what do you do? You're like, I'm a Marine. You're like, oh, cool. But like, what do you enjoy doing? And you don't really have an answer for that. You don't remember what your hobbies are and everything. It becomes really rough to transition, especially when you couple that with the fact, like you said, that you're going to move away from all the people you knew in the military. And if you're like me, you move to I don't say small town, but a town that's not near a military base. And so there's a small military presence here. And if there are service members and vets, they're all, retired or veterans. So they don't, you don't really relate on the same level. And then it's hard to develop a sense of purpose. There's not a whole lot of, senses of purpose that are quite as big as serving your country and, serving with a bunch of people that are all like willing to lay it all down. So it's hard to kind of come through all that. So, I mean, it was rough even for me. I mean, I was financially free. I didn't have to take a job, could have done whatever I wanted to do. And I found myself, I guess kind of I won't say in a rut, but struggling with not being around service members. And interestingly enough, like not having a schedule. I thought, oh, this is gonna be amazing. I'm going to make my own schedule. But kind of, it was nice when I look back having those decisions made for you. Like, you're going to do this, this, and this tomorrow. And what are you going to wear and whatever. And so, I mean, it was a bit of a rough transition. I think everybody goes through that dip when they come out. And, I always tell people, like, look, if you're feeling that way, just know anyone who's gotten out of the military has been there, done that. And just reach out to some friends that are already out and talk to them. But more importantly, like, go outside. I don't care if it's raining or sunny or snowing or whatever. Like, go find yourself out in nature somewhere and just enjoy yourself. Like, get familiar, get comfortable being alone, but also, call a friend, go for a hike. But just get outside. Because what happens is when you're mopey, you're sad, you're depressed, you're down on your luck, you stay inside away from the sun, away from nature, you get on your phone and you just dig yourself into this hole where you're more mopey and more sad and more depressed and more, when reality is, if you just go outside and get the blood flowing and just go for a walk outside with a friend, like, that's the fastest way to pull yourself out of that rut. And but the sad thing is, like, you don't see that or feel that when you're in the rut. So it's kind of, you just got to surround yourself with friends that are willing to call you and say, "Hey, we're going on a hike. Get in the car." But
Well, okay. The reason why I ask is like when I had General Petraeus on the show, something that we talked about was, like in the NBA, the NFL now, before you even join the NBA or NFL, they have to go through classes and they actually teach these players, listen, your career is probably about 3.5 years. You have to start preparing now for you to get out. And he agreed with me and he said, you know, it'd be great that if he can get, once you sit down in front of the recruiter, say, listen, one day you're going to have to put down this uniform. One day you're going to have to hang up that uniform for the last time. So let's think about your outgoing, because the most successful people that I know, business owners, they won't get into the business unless they know what the end result is. So how important do you think it is, like even if it's not when you get in, but at least a couple years before you think you get out, you should be getting on LinkedIn, you should be joining groups, you should be networking a couple years before you get out.
yeah, no, I think it's super valuable. I think you probably know my answer to that because I have a community that is kind of geared towards that, where it's like, hey, if you've got financial questions specifically, but anything, like, come drop it in here, we'll help you out. And so I absolutely believe that. I mean, and the thing is, like, I think there's a lot of negative connotation for preparing yourself to exit the military. If you talk about that too much in the military, people are like, well, you're here, like, focus on being here. And they're not mutually exclusive. You can do both. It's not hard to set yourself up for success out of the military while still being really good at your job. I mean, the military's done a really great job of doing certifications programs and, I've got 3 apprenticeship programs and all these different things that align you to set yourself up for success after the military. Getting your degree, whatever. Like, getting your degree gets you promoted in the military and sets you up for success after the military if you choose a degree that's worth doing. And so it's there's a lot of this. I guess you get flack for planning to leave the military, but I was planning to leave the military for 6, 7, 8 years before I ever decided to leave the military. And it wasn't like I was planning to because I decided, I wanted to leave. I loved what I did. I was just planning to because I was like, well, whenever I do get out, I need to be set up for success. And I think treating it that way, but also I think, actually going out and enjoying yourself on weekends, finding, like, don't lose sight of the things that you enjoy and the passions and hobbies that you have while you're in the military. Go enjoy your life off duty so that you still remember who that person is. Some of these guys I know that have seem to do decent with transition is like, and I'm not recommending this as a hobby, but like, motorcycle guys. Motorcycle guys seem to do okay because they go and they have a huge group of friends they ride with in the Marine Corps, and they fall in love with their bike, and they're diehard motorcycle guys. And then wherever you move in the country, you can find guys that ride, and they're all cool. They're all super inclusive. And so find yourself a hobby, whether it's softball or motorcycle or rugby or baseball or soccer, whatever. Like, find yourself something that you can do outside with other people that doesn't have to be service members, and then just pick that up wherever you go next. And that'll help with the trend. It really is just boils down to me about, like, figuring out what you enjoy, figuring out who you are, and finding that sense of purpose eventually. But just getting around people during the transition. It's amazing what just being, like, humans are meant to be communal people. So, get around people.
Yeah. So let me ask you, a question about transitioning. Because one of my friends, Daniel Curry, put out a post the other day. He's like, my VFW needs help. We're dying. And I told him, I'm like, because guys and girls that are getting out now, they don't want to just be sitting around getting liquored up, telling old war stories. They want to go out hiking, hunting, fishing, like you're talking about, motorcycle riding. So do you think that's some of the reasons why VFWs and AMVETs are dying at a fast rate today?
Honestly, I don't know. I would say you must be right, because I'll be honest, I've never been to a VFW. And when I think of VFW, I I I think they need to do some kind of a rebranding. Um,
Yeah.
because when you say VFW, I hear people who served in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, sitting around
Hmm.
drinking beer, talking about World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and I immediately think even though we're all service members, I'll feel like an outcast. Like I wasn't like Vietnam and Korea were entirely different beasts of conflict than Afghanistan, right? And so it's like there is a piece of me that immediately just feels like I'm not really going to fit in there. That's not my crew. My crew is, yeah, they're the guys who go off on motorcycles or hiking or the silky hikes, or like it's a whole different breed. And so I think, without having been to a VFW, so I don't really know that I can speak to it. My gut instinct is there needs to be kind of a rebranding towards younger service members, which includes those, hikes and ruck runs and outdoor activities and stuff like that. Because my kind of my view of it is older guys sitting around drinking beer, and there's nothing wrong with that. Honestly, like now that I say that out loud, I should probably grab a cigar and go hang out. But that doesn't cross my mind as something to do on the weekend.
Yeah, for me, they're like the GNC of the supplement industry. They're just old school, and they, like you said, they just need a rebrand.
Yeah.
So, talk to us about, if what did you do after you got out? How did you get into the whole entrepreneurial space?
Well, honestly, I did that while I was in. I got into real estate. I bought my first house in December of 2015. I left the military in October of 2021. And by the time I left, I owned over 100 rental units. I had a $1 million net worth, but it's on paper. It's all equity. Who cares? But I was able to walk out without having to get a job. But a lot of that was because I had kind of started this online brand, right? I started documenting my journey using the different products to buy different types of real estate and learning how to do that. And I started just documenting what I was doing. And I had named it From Military to Millionaire, which I didn't even come up with, but it's catchy. A friend of mine came up with that. And that kind of had just morphed into, an online community, a brand, and everything else. I'd written a book. The book actually came out in July, and I didn't EAS until October. So I wrote the book before I exited, and so it was kind of cool because I was already in this journey, but I didn't realize, like, I didn't know what I didn't know. I was still thinking like, oh my gosh, I made $1,000. This is amazing. Like, and I was still operating in the red. It wasn't until a year or two later that things really kind of took off as a business, and I started learning how to run, marketing and sales and everything to really kind of hone in on it. But I mean, yeah, I would say I got into it. Someone handed me Rich Dad Poor Dad. I got into real estate, and then I kind of accidentally stumbled into the entrepreneur side of it when I was documenting what I was doing in real estate, and that just grew on me, and I realized I had a business. Now
Man,
I'm
I think anybody that is thinking of starting a business, and I've had the authors of Rich Dad Poor Dad on, I think they
Robert
need
Moore.
to pick that book up and just study the shit out of it. Underline it, mark it up, because even it's 2024, October 9, it still applies to today, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it does a really good job of taking a boring topic, right? Money, and making it fun and easy to understand. And so it's not a book that'll change your life as far as like any like huge knowledge. It's not going to teach you how to buy real estate. It's not going to teach you. It is going to tell you, what it's going to do is it's going to let you turn your brain on to the idea that if I just do a little bit every year and it compounds, I can reach financial freedom and be able to focus on whatever I want and buy my time back. And that just little shift in your mentality will send you, if you're anything like me, it'll send you right off course into that world of buying houses and building businesses. And so now I've got this thing scaled up to $1 million a year in revenue. And I'm working on, we're buying a self-storage facility right now. And there's just a whole lot of things that we're playing around with.
And I don't have it up yet. I have one whole shelf It's just all purple.
Yep.
And actually, when my kids, when they were younger, we would actually play the rich dad game. We would actually play the game,
That's a fun one.
teaching them how to get out of the rat race, because a lot of people, they're stuck in the rat race. But for me, I think the biggest part of the book was because when I was growing up, my parents says, "Well, we can't afford it." But I liked something that Robert and Sharon said is, start thinking about of how can you afford it.
Yep.
And I think that's a big mindset shift when you realize how much money is out there for the taking, and but our limited beliefs will keep us poor, right?
Yes. 100%.
So, okay, you read the book. What was your next action steps after reading the book? Knowing, okay, I'm going into real estate. What were some of your steps into buying your first and second properties?
Yeah. I mean, a lot more podcasts, a lot more, research and books. And then I met with a real estate agent, told her what I wanted to buy, and started looking. And I found myself a little 2-bed, 1-bath duplex. And I was able to, thanks, Joe. Appreciate you. I don't know if everyone else can see the comments, but,
Yeah.
and, so, I found a duplex and I was able to find a way to buy it and live in one half, rent the other. It was just good timing. My lease was coming due and I had to decide whether to renew my lease or buy a property. And buying that property was actually going to save me around $350, $400 a month, because I had a tenant on the other side. And so that made it easy. And once I bought the property and saw how it was working, I was sold. But as soon as I moved out and it started paying me to own it, then I was hooked. And that's when I started looking for property number two and how do you do more of this? My second property probably took me about 15 months to buy. Maybe 15 months to buy, because I had to save up for it, but it was actually a 10 unit. And, I got it for a really good deal, even at the time, but I got it. Also, I convinced the owner to do a seller finance for 10% of it. And so I really only had to come out of pocket about 10% at the closing table. And that was just incredible. So I was able to get down a good purchase price plus a low down percentage because I did some creative structuring where the seller helped me out. And that was just because I bought at the time. It's funny looking back, people thought in 2017 that the market was going to crash. Boy, were they wrong. And, so I got lucky on that. He was trying to get out of it. It was kind of a headache property, had a lot of nasty tenants in it and a lot of maintenance that needed to be done. But when you're new to real estate, you don't have a ton of money and you've got a lot of time. So you're willing to take on those problems. And that's what I did. And I turned it around and I ultimately made like an 18x return on my time with that in about 4 years.
So, even like Robert and Sharon talked about, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but you have to kiss a lot of babies. You got to shake a lot of hands until you figure your way. So how many properties did you have to look at before you bought your first one? And then what did you learn from the first one to the second one?
I probably looked at 6 or 7 on my way to the first one. It's a lot easier to make the numbers pen out when you're doing a house hack and you're living in it, because it's like, well, I got to live somewhere. So if it is cheaper to live in this house, then I'm winning. And that was, easy math. The second one, I'd been doing what we call driving for dollars in Hawaii while I was stationed there. So I was trying to knock on doors and I wasn't having any luck. And I pulled a list of duplexes that were owned by people who lived out of state in Missouri, because I was just going back to my old market. And I sent the list. I probably hand wrote like 110, 115 letters while sitting on duty one night for 24 hours. I just had a yellow legal pad and I just wrote out, 100 different copies of, hey, my name is so-and-so. I'm interested in buying your duplex at such and such address. If you're interested, please give me a call. I'd love to talk. And, so we did that, and then I got a call back from a few of them, and they just weren't really worth it. Ironically, now looking back, I'm like, I should have bought every single property someone called me on, because they are all doubled in value in the last 5 years. But I bought the one. The guy called me and said, well, I have this duplex. I'm not really interested in selling it, but I'd like to get rid of this 10 unit, and I'm willing to help you with financing if you're open to it. And that was the conversation we had. And we kind of went down that route because, you know, as a young service member, I mean, I was a E5 when I bought that duplex. And I had not been good with my money. I didn't exactly have a ton of cash to be buying. So anything I could do to pay less down to get in the game was where it was at. And I just was lucky that the market was nice to me back then.
Well, one of my good friends is Ryan Dodge. He's a part of the Warrior Council, and we talk
Yeah.
about you all the time. You know, is that sometimes, you know, like my grandmother used to say, there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to go about creative financing. And I think some people are so afraid to go outside the box, but I think outside the box is where shit happens. So
Yes.
talk to us about sometimes having to go about with creative financing.
Oh, I'm like the king of. I have bought so much crap on creative terms. I'm walking a self-storage facility, or I walked a self-storage facility yesterday, and we negotiated that the seller would be willing to carry back the entire down payment for us to buy it. And so, you know, it's creative financing it's really just understanding how lending works and being able to have conversations with owners where you can talk through how you can solve their problem in a way that also benefits you. So it's just finding a good win-win. It's basic negotiation. So seller financing can be, you know, 100% the seller carries all of the purchase back, and you do some creative terms and wrap the mortgage. It can be just, you know, hey, I'm going to use a bank to buy this, but I don't have all the down payment. Can you let me pay you back some of it over time? And if the seller's cool with it, that works. There's lease options, there's rent to own, there's subject to the existing more, like there's all kinds of crazy ways. But my favorite is really just to discuss, you know, a seller finance, which is me making payments to the seller over time rather than to a bank. And that's the easiest way to do it.
Okay, so now, because obviously I want to get all different aspects because
Yeah.
I have friends like you, friends like Ryan, friends like Chris Griffith.
I
And
love
for
that.
me, you know, I love Chris. He helped me get my home. So I actually used the VA loan. And
Yeah.
now I'm ready to do some business because we have since the last 10 years, we have over $500,000 in equity. So we're going to start doing some other business stuff.
Love it.
So, what is your opinion on getting your first home through a VA loan?
Oh, I absolutely love it. In fact, I'm actually on Chris's mortgage team. Um, but Chris is my favorite. Vetted VA is who I point everyone to when it comes to loans. Vetted VA and his team BMN. He is the VA loan is the single best mortgage product in the entire world as far as primary residence financing, and I don't know of anything that beats it anywhere. And it's unfortunate because there's just all these misunderstandings about it. And they all stem from agents and lenders who don't know how to use it. And rather than telling you they don't know how to use it, they just try to convince you it's a bad product. So you'll use something they do know how to use because they don't want to lose your commission. And that's why someone like Chris is so valuable, because they'll tell you, oh, no, yeah, you can do this. Because the VA loan can do basically anything you can think of when it comes to buying a primary residence. And it is incredible, as you alluded to, with having $500,000 in equity in your home, and you did it without a single dollar out of, well, you might have had to pay closing costs, but no money down. You can't beat that. That's amazing. And so there's a lot of just really good ways to use the VA loan, and I love it.
So, Joe has a question up top, if you wouldn't mind answering.
Yeah, Joe asked, would you consider if it's a good thing to have an E1, E2 buy a property in the first enlistment as an investment, whether it being a home or after they sell and get out? Joe, so my answer is this. I actually hate the idea that a service member should buy a house at every duty station because it sets you up to buy a property that doesn't make sense as an investment. But if you treat it like an investment and you buy it in a way that the numbers make sense long term, then I think absolutely. And I would say, personally, my favorite way to do this is the house hack. So I would say any E1, E2 who can use the VA loan, go and find yourself a duplex, triplex, fourplex where you can live in one unit, rent the rest out, and they're paying for your living costs. And now it's an easy win because let's say you had to pay $2,000 a month to rent a house wherever you were stationed, and you got $2,000 a month in BAH. If you can get your tenants to pay all but even 500 of that, Now you're out of pocket $500 a month instead of $2,000. You got $1,500 a month extra from BAH to pocket and reinvest elsewhere, or boost your reserves, or I think that's probably the just absolute best way to get into real estate. And that's my opinion, at least.
I love it. So let me ask you a question, because this is something my wife thinks I'm crazy. She's probably right. But I'm actually looking at beach homes down the shore here in New Jersey. And I'm thinking, okay, I can buy this beach home. I could sell my house for about 800,000. Uh, buy a beach home with that money using the 1031 exchange, and then also using the VA loan. Is going to be my primary residence, so I won't have any PMI. What is your thoughts on that?
I actually don't think you can use a 1031 exchange on a VA loan property, or
Okay.
FHA or any primary residence, but it won't matter, because if you lived in the house for 2 of the last 5 years, which obviously you do, then you're exempt for up to $500,000 in capital gains tax anyway. So that's actually a better deal, because with the 1031 you have all these weird rules about what you can and can't buy. But if it's
Yeah.
a primary residence, you just get a straight up $250,000 if you're single, $500,000 if you're married, capital gains exemption. And so you still wouldn't pay any taxes on it, and you wouldn't have any of those rules. So I actually prefer that. And I think if you can get into a property that makes sense, and you can throw the money down and it's not going to hurt you financially, I don't know. I'm not one to tell somebody don't live on the beach. I think that's lovely. So I think.
Well, see, but the only reason I'm thinking about it is because I'm 100% disabled, and if I live in the state of New Jersey, I don't pay any property tax.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Awesome. Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
rather live on the beach and sit in a jacuzzi and make podcasts.
I agree, and I think that's great for your mental health, which is huge. You're getting outside.
Yeah. So okay. So how did you go? I mean, I understand buying one property after another, but obviously, like even Robert talks about in the Purple books, you have to build a team, and your team. And for me, my team is everything. I wouldn't be able to do what I do without my team. So you had to have a team to get to 100 doors. You didn't just do it all by yourself, right?
No, yeah, I've got a property manager, I've got an agent on the team, I've got, at the time I was doing some wholesaling and flipping, and so I had a contractor, I had an acquisitions guy, I had a lead manager, essentially someone to maintain who I was talking to, all of those things. Now I've kind of scaled back, and I'm more just doing partnerships deals, and so I'll find a friend or somebody who I know who's a really good operator, and I will either raise the money for the deal or sign on the debt, or whatever it takes in order to make the deal happen. And then that's kind of my move is managing to just being able to get a piece of a deal, a fairly large piece in some cases, for being able to pull people together. Or like this mobile home park, right? I found the deal, I negotiated the seller financing, and then I'm going to help run it, but I've got a full-time boots on the ground manager that's going to be the other half. And so I'm trying to kind of partner with people in that regard, where, I can bring time and knowledge or money and knowledge, and they can bring time, and then we can crush a deal together.
Okay. So now let me, because I believe you need to have a quality of life. But something I love about you is people may see the big and the gruff kind of guy, but they really don't know that you really have a big heart. And one thing I love about you is that, you know, you've been helping the Boy Scouts out for a really long time. So that I know that hits your heart a lot. So talk about, you know, business is what we do. It's not who we are. And we also
Yeah.
have outside things that give us joy. So how important to us is to like volunteer, becoming a den master with the Boy Scouts, or other things in life besides business. How important is that to for our soul and our mental health?
Yeah, giving back is really important, and it's fun. You meet really cool people. So I'm actually not currently involved in Boy Scouts, so that's nothing against them. I just my I got divorced, so my stepson who was in Scouts is now turning 16 in a week, and he could care less about anything other than getting his driver's license and playing baseball. And then my other son is so busy in sports, he just hasn't gotten to the age of getting into that. But yeah, I was a den leader for 3, maybe 4 years as either a scoutmaster or den leader. I am an Eagle Scout, so I definitely, I like that world for sure. I volunteered and I coached my stepson's baseball team for a year or 2 years. I coached my son's baseball team for the last year. I enjoy all of that stuff for sure. But I also, I've kind of, there's a fun aspect to when you get out and you volunteer and you help people, like you meet really good people. You don't, the guy who, the deadbeat in your life who's negative Nancy about everything and is just not fun to be around is not volunteering in town. And so the people you meet in town that volunteer are always really cool. Like when I was a den master, I had worked alongside this guy for probably close to 2 years. And then one day I ran into him at work and realized he was a lieutenant colonel and he was the commanding officer of the Marine Corps Air Station in Hawaii. And I was like, oh, you're the guy who flies the private plane for the generals. Like, I just knew you as, first name. I'm like, it was, it is just funny. And so I like getting around those people for sure. There's some good organizations out there. I'm trying to get more involved in some local stuff here that's, either veteran related or just helping people out. But yeah, it's a good feeling. And we're trying to do some initiatives within my community to be able to do charity stuff as well. Cause I think that's, giving back it's both important and it's good for the soul.
And that's something that our brother Joe is great at. He's always helping other people. He's always trying to become great in the community, helping Project Die Hard. So Joe has another question.
Yeah, there's startup funds to pay the team or collaborate. Yeah, no, I had nothing when I first started. I have funds now to pay all my team members, but I've bootstrapped everything I did. And so I usually either try to go with an equity split or a kind of a percentage like commission pay. Like with my property manager, it's commission of rent or percentage of rent. With my real estate agents and lenders, it's commission. All of those are kind of normal transactions. My attorney is now on retainer monthly, but that wasn't always the case. I didn't have an attorney for a long time that was like that. It was just, and so, now I'm partnering with people where basically I am partnering with somebody who's a really good operator and they're getting paid via a percentage of equity and cash flow. And so, the better they operate, the more they make. But I allowed them to get into the deal without having to have any money because I was able to find the money, raise the money, sign on the debt. The lender lent to it because of my net worth, various things like that. That's kind of what I bring to the table. So like right now I've got a partner. We bought 13 single family houses earlier this year in a portfolio, and we're going to buy this storage facility together. And, he's an incredible operator, but his tax returns got messed up. So he can't really borrow from a bank the way that you would want to right now. And so they use my net worth and my financials and my global cash flow to finance the deal. And then I negotiate like the creative financing sometimes. Sometimes he does. He's not bad at that either. But I'll raise money. So like I raised $100,000 for the 13 single families. And so we're able to do it like that, where I'm raising money or funding the deals and then signing on the debt, taking on that risk, and he's operating it, and then he gets paid. We get paid, 50-50 or 35-65, depending on the deal, out of the cash flow.
All right, now I have a question because I just want to see which way you fall on the spectrum of this. Obviously, sometimes a lot of people use their home as equity and then get into business and build their businesses. But it seems like as people get into the higher echelon of entrepreneurship, say somebody like a Grant or somebody like a Kiyosaki, they say, I don't own my home. I don't own nothing. The corporations own everything. I just live in the houses that the corporations own. So, what are your thoughts on that? Is that something that you do, or do you actually own your own home too?
Yeah, no, I own the house I'm in right now. I
Okay.
I think if you look at like Grant, for example, Grant has no he has nothing to gain by owning his own home other than owning his own home. But he has a lot to gain from convincing his audience that they don't need to own their own home. They just invest in multifamily real estate, which he just so happens to have for, you to invest in. And
Yeah.
so that's Grant's game. Grant's game is you don't need to own this when you can own a piece of this. By the way, I have this to sell you. And he's smart. That's a good play. I think pros and cons, right? Because I understand the idea that your home is not an asset. I mean, it is. Let's be real. Like by all technical definitions, you have an equity position in it. It's an asset. It's going up in value. It counts as an asset. But what people mean by that is it costs you to live in the house. You've got property taxes, you've got utilities, you've got maintenance, you've got whatever, and it doesn't cost you in the same regard to just rent. You just have the payment, and you don't have all the other stuff. That being said, that's why I like house hacking. So I'm house hacking this. The upstairs is an Airbnb and it pays for everything. So I live for free in this house and I don't have to deal with, too much. I mean, I have some guest issues that I got to deal with here and there, but for the vast majority of the time, I live for free in this house and the Airbnb covers itself. And that's been great for me. So I would consider this one to be an asset and I live here. So it's great.
And I agree with you. Like, we're building a new podcast studio, so I'm able to be able to write that off. But also, a lot of people when they buy a regular house, they're like, "Oh, I'm going to put a pool in it," and then they try to sell the house like 5 years later, and they have such trouble trying to sell a house with a pool, especially in New Jersey because the laws are crazy like California. So, but I think as you start moving up into the world of financial, you start realizing is anything I do to my house, is it going to raise the value for when I sell it, or is it going to decrease the value? So is that if anybody's going to do any additions or anything, is that something they should think about even before they do anything to their homes?
Yeah, I think you should really understand. It depends on what you're going for. If it's your forever home, who cares? But if it's a home that you may sell or leverage at some point, you should definitely think about what brings the most bang for buck as you're doing renovations. And realistically, that's kitchen and bathrooms. Kitchen and bathrooms are what brings the most value to homes. If you add a bedroom, that's huge. If you add a bathroom or a half bath, that can be huge. But a really nice kitchen and a really nice set of bathrooms goes a long way in the real estate game when it comes to valuations.
All right. So now let's bring it up. Now we're, like I said, it's October 9th, 2024. And in New Jersey, the market is hot. Like my friend he put his house on the market Friday. They're signing the paperwork on Monday, and
Wow.
he sold his house for 200,000 over asking price.
Damn.
Because everybody from New York, they're all moving into New Jersey because it's cheaper, and everybody's working from home, so they're setting up offices at home.
That's
So obviously we're not. It's not the normal. So what are you seeing in the normal and countrywide as far as the real estate market?
I mean, it's not terribly different here. We're not quite that hot, but I had a property about a year and a half, 2 years ago that I tried to sell and it didn't sell. And I had a tenant move out and I was like, you know what? I still don't really like this property. I'm going to sell it. And my agent told me he could probably sell it for like 15,000 more than we had listed it the first time. So I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. And so it's, it's definitely still moving here and the values have increased for sure. And honestly, I think as rates drop that'll continue to increase, but we're going to just have to kind of wait, I guess, and see. Time will tell what the market really does, but it's still kicking here. I mean, inventory is still down, sales are still up. We're still above average quote unquote market cycles and people are moving here as well. So it's going up in value slowly but surely.
So if you get somebody like I have a friend of mine, one of my old mentors, who taught me a lot about business. He's actually thinking about selling his home. He knows he can get money over asking, but the problem is there's no inventory. So now he can't buy a house because there is no inventory. So you're kind of locked in a the six of one and a half dozen of other. Are you seeing a lot of that also?
Not as bad here. No, we definitely still, you can still find stuff to buy here.
So okay, this is a teaching podcast. If somebody was going to get, if Joe Schmo was going to get out of the military today, and wanted to start a business, it could be real estate or any other business, what would be your top three pieces of advice for Joe Schmo coming out of the military?
Learn marketing and sales because most people don't, and that's the hardest part of any business. Learn, not even learn, get around people who are already doing what you want to do. If you've got a business idea, there's somebody out there who has a similar business and they can help you. And I'm not saying go to them and be like, teach me everything you know. Like, learn from them. Whether if they wrote a book, read it. If they're on podcasts, listen to them. Build a relationship with them. If you're gonna just straight up ask them for help, open your wallet and pay them for their time. Like, make it valuable for them. Otherwise, why are they going to help you? Like, especially if you're trying to compete in their world, they're not going to help you for free. They're going to be like, oh, cool, man. I learned everything the hard way. Best of luck. Make it worth their time to help you and show interest and actually research from them. The sales, marketing. And then I would say, find something you love. And I mean, for some of us, the passion is that they love building a business or a project, right? Like, that can be a thing. But find something you're passionate enough about that it excites you and will make you work through when things aren't going great. And you mentioned at the very beginning, we go all the way back to this resilience thing. It's consistency. Well, if you don't actually love what you're doing, you're not going to be consistent when shit hits the fan. You're gonna go and find something you enjoy doing. And in all business startup ventures, there is what I call the BMW phase, which is below minimum wage. And you're going to grind for a while, not making a ton of money. And you have to be able to stay consistent through that, or you will be one of those 9 out of 10 businesses that doesn't make it. And so find something you enjoy, understand marketing and sales, and get around people who can help you grow it.
Well, it's kind of like podcasting. We have something in our industry called pod fade. The average podcast lasts 13 episodes.
Yeah.
We're up to episode 1350, because we've been we stay consistency.
Yep.
But I also had to pay my mentor, Mr. John Lee Dumas, who actually wrote the whole back cover of my book.
Nice.
But I had to learn from him. I want to learn from the best. He's making $250,000 a month from his podcast. That's who I want to learn from.
Entrepreneurs on Fire is definitely
how important is mentorship, but also sometimes having to, because we all know a lot of military people are cheap as fuck. They want everything for free. So how important it is to sometimes have to learn, to pay to learn from the best to become the best.
Yeah, I think it's huge. It's funny you say that. I just had a video go live and it's talking about VA loans, and somebody commented on it and said, this guy scams vets. And, my instinct is, well, this is just a negative guy. I'll just block him. That way I don't have to, deal with him. But instead I was like, curious what makes you say that? Like, I've never been sued or down. There's not a whole thread about me being scammy. All my reviews are 5-star. Like, what makes me a scam artist? And his answer was, well, for one thing, the mastership, the mentorship you offer for $5,000. And I was like, I could tell by his name, like, the guy's not in the group. He's never been in the group. I don't know who this is. So I was like, is it the price tag that makes it a scam to you? Because, like, if you're like, for real, like, if you immediately assume scam when there's a dollar tag attached to something, then you're not the type of person I want in the group anyway. But, like, you have to go looking for my mentorship. I don't just offer it to people. It's not like the mastermind community it's full of people that are crushing it and want to really take it to the next level. And we have an application process and an interview process. So I'm like, for it to be a scam, like the members who joined, not one person who's joined has ever told me it was a scam. And nobody has ever asked for their money back because they didn't get their value. The only time I've ever been asked for money back is because of, well, really buyer's remorse. Somebody who was like, oh, I didn't have, my like, it's always like my grandma died. And it's very rare. It's like maybe 6 people out of the 400 members we have over, 5 years. And it's funny, there's the idea that people really do think it's a scam. And I'm like, no, the scam is you thinking I'm going to teach you everything I know for free. Like, why would I do that? I make, a couple $100,000 a year doing this. Why would I stop and give it to you for free when I don't even know who you are? Like, if you're going to build a relationship with me and get close to me and be in my circle, show up to cigar nights, have whiskey, hang out and whatever, you're going to learn because you're a friend and you're in a good spot. Like my close friends, I'll answer questions for anytime. But if you just expect someone to drop everything and teach you, like, how entitled do you have to be? I mean, you wouldn't go to your drill instructors and be like, hey, can you just let me off the hook today and just show me how to pass boot camp and just be nice to me? Why? Well, because I want to pass boot camp. Like, no, bitch, you got to earn that shit. So, so I guess that's my kind of my rant, but like, I did the math. I am going to pay out $60,000 this year for a professional, like a performance coach, a mindset coach, and a mastermind group that I'm in, not including like travel to events that I'm going to learn, the event costs and everything else, like 60 grand on those 3 people. So I 100% believe in paying to be around people that have enough value to bring you that they wouldn't just stop everything and help you for free because they have so much going on. And in one of those cases, like the guy is doing incredibly well. He's like a $25-30 million net worth. And he's got, 3 baby girls and a wife and spends all his nights and weekends with them and he's unreachable. So he's like, that's the kind of person I want to learn from. Great home life, still crushing it in business. Yeah, you're going to have to open your wallet to talk to that guy or live close enough to be a good friend.
And, and something that I learned from Robert, the warrior strategist Garcia, and something that I use every day is, I'll give you the what, but I'm not going to give you the how. Yeah. And Gary Vee does the same thing. I mean, he'll let you buy the books for $15, $20. But if you're going to see him live, you're going to pay a price. If you want to get taught by him and the guys at VaynerMedia, you're going to pay a major price. Yeah. And I think that's very important. And I think even Layla and Alex Hormozy do the same thing. We'll give you the what. You got to pay for the how.
Well, I guess that's fair, actually. I'm probably at 80,000 because I dropped 20 grand to go to 3 sessions with Layla and Alex. And I've 2 sessions in, it's changed my whole business model. So it's great.
So let's talk about, because I've been in your group, your Facebook group. I can't believe how it's just growing. It's growing like crazy. I know you hit a great number. But you're also an author. You also have a book that I want to talk about. So talk about all the other things you've got going on besides just the business aspect.
Yeah, I mean, we got the podcast and everything else, but yeah, the book, I've got a 90-day planner, which is kind of just, the planner I like to use to set myself up for success every day. And then I've got a book called The No BS Guide to Military Life, which is, it's basically everything I wish I'd known when I joined the military. So it's probably 2/3 of it is financial, but the other third is, jobs and recruiter versus drill instructor and certificates you can earn and degrees and military benefits and documenting things to help with your VA disability when you transition out and how to decide when to get out and whether to do the reserves and all kinds of stuff that'll actually help you with your time in the military. But the other 2/3 is, real estate, thrift savings plan, index funds, basic investing stuff. And it's all very beneficial. It's everything I wish I'd known when I joined, and it's in chronological timelines. So it's the perfect book to hand to a young service member who's thinking about joining the military or just did, but it's also the perfect book to hand to a vet and be like, this is how your benefits work now. And I give it away for free on my website.
For me, I want to purchase personally both books, but I also want the 90-day planner because I use my 90-day planner. I'm using John Lee Dumas's for the last 5 years.
That I went with a green monster spine. That's the Omara.
So I've been using, John Lee Dumas's for, 5 years now. And I believe if I don't write things down, it ain't going to get done. And that's
Yeah.
why I love the planner. So how do we get the planner? How do we get the book?
The book, well, I have a link that I always tell people on podcasts. It's thebestpodcastguest.com. And if you go there, you can get the book as a free PDF. It's on Audible, it's on Amazon, but you can download the PDF for free if you are okay reading that way. And that's on the website there with all my social media and everything. But then if you go to my website and you just do /books, you'll find the planner and the book and all their Amazon links.
I'm definitely picking up the planner. I know that because
let me know how you like it.
I will, because I like I said, everything I believe that there's something magical about putting pen to paper instead of just tickling it into your phone, and hitting send. I think there's a big difference. So talk about your Facebook group and what you got going on there.
Facebook group is really just a hub, right? There's a lot of content posted in there. There's a lot of Q&A. There's a lot of just general information. I've got a ton of resources. Like I've got guides and lenders and agents and stuff like that. And I've got moderators, but a lot of it is just facilitating a place for people to come and ask questions without a ton of spam. And if we see spam, we block it. We're very quick to block spammers, agents, lenders, and insurance reps specifically who want to pitch their business. They all go bye-bye. I've probably blocked like 10,000 people over the last few years. So it's pretty wild, but it's a good time. The group is really valuable. It's just a bunch of service members and vets looking to use their benefits the most. So if you just kind of hang out in there, you'll see everything's, free content. And I repurpose my YouTube videos, my podcasts and stuff in there, and it's good.
And you're also on Instagram, TikTok. I'm following you everywhere. So
yeah,
you're pretty much every single place.
Yeah, YouTube, podcast, Instagram, TikTok. Instagram's probably the best one to get a hold of me if you want to just chat. Like I answer all my DMs there. And then the Facebook group is huge for knowledge. And then if you're looking for like answers to your questions, you can post in the Facebook group, but also it's probably been answered like 10 times in the YouTube channel.
So then what is upcoming? What's coming up in the next couple months for you?
Well, I've got my third in-person event for my mastermind group. That's in 2.5 weeks. And then I've got a bunch of stuff going on. I've got another event that I'll do in February. We're under contract on a hotel. We're going under contract on that storage facility. Really just kind of pushing on the mastermind group to be like the best community for service members and vets who are interested in financial freedom and real estate. And I'm working on growing all that stuff. And then I've got another really big project that I haven't said anything about publicly yet. So I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag, but we're going to try to take on some big industries. So we'll see what happens.
I love it. And some of the things I think I know who you're talking about and what you got planned. And I'm excited for January, February. I'm just gonna leave it at that. And I love you, and I love you, and I love your friends that are doing this. I think I know a few of them. So I'm excited for January and February. So, brother, I just want to say thank you for your friendship all these years, and thank you for your mentorship because I learned a lot just today about what I should do about that beach home, and I think I'm going to do that.
I love it. Well, I'll have to come out and visit you. But no, thanks for the friendship and thanks for having me on the show again, brother.
I love it. And guys, like I said, thank you, Monster Energy. And also thank you for the Vetpreneur Tribe and the Warrior Council for sponsoring this episode. Without the Vetpreneur Tribe, I would not be a Vetpreneur. And I love you guys. And Joe, thank you so much. I appreciate and I love you. So guys, I love it. Make sure you check out all his social. He put out one today on Instagram, and I left a note on it. So if you go check out his Instagram, leave a note. It's blowing up. I see the numbers just click, 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 click. So check out my brother's Instagram account. And Dave, I just want to say, brother, I appreciate you and I love you, brother.
Right back at you, man.
All right, guys. And remember, vertical momentum. The only way to go is up. I love you guys. Have a great day. take care of one another.